There's two things, two perspectives that I have inside of me. Well, multiple actually, but two fundamental perspectives. One is like a logical, rational perspective, but the other is the human, the heart perspective. There are two wolves inside of me. When it comes to the economy, or not even economy, I think it really comes down to separation or integration. Those are the only two ways to really look at things. Yin and yang, right? Duality or unity. And when it comes to, okay, let me roll back a little and make things more clear. So when it comes to things like the economy is made up of a lot of things. The resources in the natural environment, energy, the time it takes to produce something, the creative energy of people. It's all of that combined together. That's the whole entire economy, right? The whole creation and maintenance of everything, and destruction too, because the economy is also composting, recycling. That's part of the economy too. It's very little compared to the creation and maintenance, especially, but creation, maintenance, and destruction, just like the Hindu god Shiva, right? I think Shiva, Brahmin. I could be totally misquoting. Sorry, sorry if you're a Hindu in the audience. Like, please correct me if I'm wrong. But I believe it. There's the three gods of Brahman, or the three aspects, I should say: the creator, the maintainer, and the destroyer. And so it seems like when it comes to the economy, well, for one, we do a lot more creation than maintenance, and we do a lot more maintenance than destruction, but they're all essential to the economy. But it's so lopsided, right? Our balance is so lopsided. Of course, that's why people talk about the circular economy, regeneration, regenerative agriculture, right? The 3 R's, the 5 R's, right? Recycling, reusing, reducing. All these things are really saying the same thing, right? We need more maintenance. So our first economy, industrial revolution, focused on creation, right? Creating things, right? Which is great, but we have to maintain things, right? Maintenance is a lot more costly usually than creation, right? Because you have to do it over and over and over and over again, right? That's why depreciation kills, right? Depreciation, maintenance. That's why maintenance kills. Upkeep. So we don't focus nearly as much on maintenance, and we never talk about the destruction aspect, right? How do I, from cradle to cradle, right? The circular economy. We never really talk about that in mainstream economics because it's very difficult, right? It's very difficult, or it's a totally different paradigm. So that's one thing I wanted to talk about, the circular economy. But even bigger than that, really, is that notion of specialization, right? So that's like the whole myth, the mythos of economics, which is okay. So society, right? We lived as hunter gatherers and tribes and clans, and over time we started developing more specialized, more hierarchical social structures, right? We had priests and chief priests, and we had warriors and chief warriors, and now we have warrior kings, right? We have lords, emperors, right? All these things. And it's kind of like the whole story of more hierarchical social complexity, but it's very strange. So let me try to describe it. Let me try to boil everything down into the fundamentals. So what's strange is specialization led to more complexity of society, right? First you only had really hunter gatherers, right? I'm generalizing a lot. I'm generalizing a lot, but just as like the big narrative of, I'm talking about the big narrative of humanity. So we had hunter gatherers. Everybody kind of hunted. Everybody kind of made their clothes and made their tools. But over time, specialization, right? No, so you had blacksmiths, you had fishermen, you had farmers, you had the healing man, the medicine man, you had the chieftain, right? You had specialization. And over time, more and more and more specialization. Accountants, lawyers, you had doctors, you had merchants, right? And specialization does lead to more efficiencies in the system. However, there's a big catch that no one ever talks about really, which is increasing fragility in the system. Because when it comes to systems, there's two ways you can kind of think about it. One is efficiency, efficient systems, and one is resiliency, how anti-fragile, how resilient the system is. And when it comes to natural systems, the bigger the natural system, the ecosystem, the more resilient it is, right? Because it's bigger, it's larger. It's very simple, right? If you have like a fish tank, that's a very small ecosystem, right? It's very fragile. If you change the pH, if you change the temperature, it changes drastically, right? But if you have a bigger ecosystem, let's say like a lake, right, which is still a quote unquote closed system, right? It's much bigger. So it's less fragile, right? If you have an ocean, that's even bigger, right? It's much, much less fragile. For natural systems, the bigger they are, generally the more resilient they are because it's more diverse, right? It's bigger. When it comes to human systems, though, it's the opposite. The bigger the human system, the less resilient it is. Right? We can see that with our supply chains, right? Because our supply chain, if one thing falls apart, everything falls apart. Right? If you have a machine with 1,000 gears, 1,000 parts, if one part fails, right, and if that's an integral, right, like a key component, everything fails, right? The whole thing fails. So what's the difference between natural systems, so quote unquote natural systems, and human-made systems? It's how we view systems themselves. So natural systems are integrated, right? They're a whole interconnected. The sum is greater than, or sorry, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, right? I mean, it's like baking a cake. You have eggs, wheat, you have sugar, you have, if you like whipped cream, you mix it all together, right? But then if you bake it, a cake is greater than eating eggs, sugar, wheat mixed together, mixed in, no, like just as like a batch, right? The sum is greater than the part. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. That means that it's interconnected together. It's integrated together. But in human systems, what we do is actually we take the integrated, so we take nature, which is already whole, right? There's no separation in nature, none whatsoever. And we separate it, right? We chop it up, we divide it, right? Like property, we divide it into land plots, right? Property, we divide resources, right? We create countries, right? We define everything in terms of what it's not, right? Because of borders, because of separation, classification. So we take these chopped up pieces and then we stitch them up together, right? So like a car, for example, we take metals from the soil, right? So we separate the metals from the soil or the dirt, right? And then we process them into parts of the car, right? Of course, I'm skipping through a lot of steps, yes. right? And then we extract the fossil fuels, right? So we take the parts away from the whole of nature, which is already whole, right? And then we stitch them together into a car, right? So it's like Frankenstein, basically. Frankenstein's monster, right? We take parts from here, parts from here, parts from here, and then we kind of like stitch them together. That's why it's for human systems, bigger systems are less resilient, right? Because of our specialization, right? Because of that special, I like to call it specialized consciousness, right? Or like separateness, how we feel separate from everything else. That allows us to be more efficient, right? It allows smaller systems are easier to make efficient, right? Because they're smaller. There's less to manage. So if there's less to manage, it's much easier to make it efficient. Which is why specialization leads to efficiency. But the cost of efficiency is resilience. It's the loss of interconnectedness. So that's the difference, right? It's really just, it's very simple, right? It's an inverse relationship between efficiency and resilience. Because of the way we define efficiency. So the key points are smaller systems are more efficient, more easy to make efficient than larger systems because they're smaller, they're easier to manage. First key point. Second key point is as humans, we specialize more and more, which leads to efficiency. The third key point is, but that increase in efficiency leads to less resilience because of the way we make things efficient. Because it's like stitching together, right? So we take like an integrated whole, right? So it's like a pizza, right? Think of like a pizza, right? And then you slice it up. You slice up the pizza, and then you kind of like move this pizza here, move this pizza here, and then you try to combine it all together, right? So it looks weird now. That's kind of what we're doing. Each small part is way more efficient than the whole pizza, right? It's easier to manage, right? Same with the pizza, right? It's easier to eat a slice of pizza than like eating the whole pizza, unless you're a barbarian. No, I like to eat whole pizzas too, but each slice of pizza is not integrated, right? Because you cut it up, right? Now it's not integrated with the rest of the pizza, right? The whole pizza. So, right, that's kind of what we do as humans, right? We take a connected whole, we slice it up, and then we kind of stitch it together. That's what it makes it more efficient, but it makes it less resilient. Those among you in the audience who are very good at mathematics, like chaos theory, dynamic systems, you might be able to create like an equation or formula for this. I think there might have been somebody who already did make it for like complexity theory. But if you can let me know of like an analogous idea, please put this in the comment. Yeah, but that was what I was thinking about. How weird it is that systems that humans make are more efficient because they're more specialized, but they're less resilient because we stitch together these separated smaller systems into one larger codependent system. So instead of it being interdependent, it becomes codependent. So the whole becomes less than the sum of its parts.